Welcome back to another episode of Delta Waterfowl's Voice of the Duck Hunter podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Kate Hunt and Julia Gibson to cover the broad topic of women in hunting. Kate and Julia share their thoughts on topics ranging from female-specific hunting gear, tips on how to make new female hunters feel welcome, and their personal experiences with guided versus public land duck hunting. With that introduction, let's bring in today's guests. Kate Hunt and Julia Gibson, welcome to the Delta Waterfowl podcast.
Hey, good to be here.
Yeah. Right on. Yep, and just for the listeners, first one was Kate. Kate, say hi.
Hi, this
so
is
you can
me.
recognize the voices. Julia, say hi.
Hi.
All right. So we are at the second annual Delta Waterfowl Expo in Little Rock, Arkansas. Welcome. So you have a booth?
I do.
Probably.
I have a booth.
Kate has a booth. Julia, do you have anything, or you're just walking around?
Come hang out with me.
I'm helping out with whoever needs it.
No, that's perfect. Perfect. Well, we're really glad to have you. We're talking about a pretty important subject, just to not to bury the lead. We're talking about women in hunting. And so as a father of a 13-year-old daughter who loves to hunt, I am going to take notes, and I'm glad we're recording this, and I think there's a lot of moms and dads out there in the world that can learn from this conversation, we hope. So before we get into the meat of the conversation, one of the things on our podcast, we like to get to know the guests and give some opportunity. So Kate, you're first on my list. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Were you always a hunter? Just give us that quick overview of you.
So my name is Kate. I just moved from South Carolina to Texas last summer, and I'm doing the brand full time. My background is I'm an Army veteran, and the last 9 years I was a deputy sheriff in South Carolina. 3 of that I was a narcotics investigator, worked undercover, and just fully switched over to hunting, which is my true passion. I've been a hunter for 10 years. Most people are surprised. They say I didn't grow up hunting, but I didn't come from a hunting family. I just fell in love with it and went full force in. So
wow, that's a lot to unbox there.
Yeah.
Military veteran, how many years?
I did 6 years.
6 years?
Yep.
Wow. And then into the police department?
Yep.
Or law enforcement anyway?
9 years deputy sheriff, yep.
Unreal. Yeah, I guess we could go into that one a little bit, but you didn't start hunting until you were an adult.
No, I had a boyfriend, Will, who taught me how to duck hunt and just fell in love with it. Their family land had a swamp, and we would duck hunt in South Carolina, and it was just awesome. I was shocked because coming from military and law enforcement, I had plenty of firearms experience. I just had never been exposed to hunting before. It just hadn't come up yet in my life, and just fell in love with it.
So do you remember that first hunt?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's beautiful. I mean, people think you're crazy when you say that one of the most beautiful places is standing in the middle of a swamp. Like, some people don't get that, but
yeah,
it's...
that typically doesn't flow in a lot of conversations, does it?
But that is my ideal, first date. Let's go stand in the middle of a swamp,
That's great. That's great. Yeah, wow. And so you have an apparel company.
I do. So I have the Duck Huntress brand. I started that. This will be 5 years this duck season. I go by duck season.
Yeah.
That's how I try to keep track. But 5 years ago, I was actually working out in Arkansas helping guide. I did that the past 6 years. And I came back one season, and I was like, you know what? I really would love a T-shirt with the silhouette of a female duck hunter. That's got to exist. So I was working one of my cop side jobs, sitting there at night, and I'm Googling, looking for a T-shirt that has a girl duck hunter on it. And there was zero. The only thing I could find 5 years ago was a pink shirt that had a duck on it that was classified as a women's duck hunting shirt. And I couldn't believe that no one had, because there's plenty of girl duck hunters out there, obviously. I mean, they've come out of the woodwork in the past 5 years, but there just wasn't something out there that was not only for women, but hunting colors related. Mm-hmm. There's no offense to pink or purple, but we want something that we can actually wear in the field, browns, greens, hunting colors.
Right.
So, and I specifically, not to go too far, but I specifically chose that name because I knew that the word huntress actually had a negative history in the hunting industry. So I purposely chose that because I hated the idea of little girls looking up that word and seeing all this negative talk, seeing all of this bashing and sexual innuendos, and I hated that. So I was like, if anyone has any kind of career history to turn that around, to make that word a positive thing, I'm going to take a shot at it. It might be a total failure to choose that word, but I feel like I gave it a really good run for its money.
Yeah, it doesn't have a negative
Social
feeling to
media
me.
wise,
Yeah.
it can have a like, oh, if you're a huntress, you might only wear pink in the blind and not know what to do. So it did have that, but slowly over the past couple of years, it's really cool to see a lot more people embrace that word because historically, it just means a woman who hunts, like Greek and Roman mythology. Like that's literally what the definition of a huntress. So
Yeah, I do think there's a lot of that girl camo gone wrong.
Right.
Let's
Right.
just put some pink on it.
Right.
Right, and it's going to be great.
Unfortunately, I mean, you do see a lot of that. But-
Yeah. So no, yeah, I
And there's
think
nothing
that
wrong with it if you want to wear that, but
Right.
it's not for everyone.
that's it. Variety,
Right.
fit, all those things. We're going to talk about that, so we don't want to go too far. Let's switch gears and let's get to know Julia. Julia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, happy to be here today. Happy to meet you, Kate and Joel. I am a sixth-generation cotton farmer from southeast Missouri, northeast Arkansas area. I live in Kansas City now, Overland Park area. I grew up hunting with my dad, was always out in the outdoors. He stopped going when I was probably 11 or 12, and so I obviously stopped going as well. I didn't so much run into the female versus male kids clothing necessarily just because I was a kid when I went, but as I've gotten older, during COVID actually, I really got bored. There was not a lot to do. My hometown doesn't have a lot anyway, and so what you do is you either farm and then in the winter you go hunt. And so I ended up getting back into hunting where I would go with some of my buddies, just have a good time, cut up, do whatever, kill some ducks, and then I really noticed some of those girls coming out of the woodworks and hunting more. And so I kind of just developed this desire to find females who hunt and to hunt with females. And even up until this point, just recently, I haven't ever hunted with a female, ever. I've only hunted with males, my dad, my brother, close friends, and things like that. And so I kind of want to do something about that in a sense and start to get more involved. But that's my hunting background. And then during the day, I work at an ag marketing agency, and I represent Bayer, Crop Sciences, Delta Pine Cotton, and a little bit on their DeKalb and Asgrow brands. And then I also farm. So.
Yeah, well, we have to put a plug in here. 2023 National Ms. United States Agriculture. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So obviously, I just talked a little bit about my ag background, a little bit about my outdoor background. But I really wanted to find a way to kind of join those together, but also use it as a teaching moment for other people that might be interested in learning more. And so the National Miss United States Agriculture Organization is obviously a pageant for women, and it's a bunch of women coming together to talk about the agriculture industry and figure out ways to promote and advocate for the industry, farming specifically. And so with that, you've got 100+ girls coming together to chat, cut up, have a good time, but also find ways to share, I guess kind of actually combat the misconceptions in the agriculture industry, whether it be to do with females in the ag industry or really just GMOs, for example, like just combating those misperceptions. And so with that, each queen has a platform or kind of something that they're passionate about and want to teach others about. And so I made mine hunting, and I have seen a really large group of girls kind of come out of the woodworks that don't actually hunt, but are saying, I've always wanted to. I'm just embarrassed or ashamed to, maybe ask my boyfriend or ask some of my guy friends, or maybe they've been kind of joked towards or had jokes made about them, and so they don't want to ask questions to get started. And so through my platform, I started a few all-girls hunts. This will be the first year on my family's land in Arkansas. So I know there are organizations that do, all girls hunts. I love that. I think that's great. I know that maybe for a lot of beginner hunters, it might be hard to to spend that amount of money. Organized, and we'll be hosting these 5 hunts in Arkansas on my family's land to provide an opportunity for females who are interested in getting involved but may not want to spend loads of money to do so. To be able to come together, I'm partnering with a close family friend's lodge. So we've got a great deal for that, and then we'll bring the girls in. Leading up to that, we'll have some resources for them as far as gear 101 type things and other basics to get started, and then just honestly have an open forum for them to ask as many questions as they want and to hopefully get them started in the hunting industry.
That's great. I like that.
And some of them do. We've got several girls coming that have extensive backgrounds in hunting and are phenomenal and probably are more qualified to put these hunts on than I am. And so I'm actually really hoping to kind of, I guess, rack their brain and
Sure.
get their insight and have them as a resource as well. So there's at least one seasoned hunter on each one of these hunts. So
That's really cool.
in addition to me. So I'm super excited. I think it'll be great. All the girls are really excited, and just really providing an opportunity for girls that want to get involved. So I'm really excited about that. And
No,
that
that's
all
great.
ties into the agriculture organization. So
No, that's great. It's fascinating. Very interesting for me. Are you guys familiar with the term R3? It stands for the recruitment, retention, and reactivation of hunters. It's the life cycle. So that's a huge buzzword, simply because the number of hunters in the North American continent are annually on the decline. And so a lot of the discussions that we have in the R3 community, I put some air quotes around that, since you can't watch it, but it's that hunting historically was white male dominated.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. But if you look at U.S. Census data, you look at the future, and our society is becoming more diverse. And so if we continue this white male-dominated, what do you call hunting? A pastime, a passion? I think it'll become continually irrelevant in the future, because as our society becomes more diverse, we're not represented, in the public vote. Would be
Agreed.
probably where it comes down to. So when, at Delta we talk about the need for ethnic and gender diversity when it comes to our hunter ranks. And so, of course, we're going to talk about gender diversity. But one of the things that I think is really interesting, if you go back into early Paleolithic humans, it's estimated that about 50% of hunters were female, 50% male back at that time, more in that hunter-gatherer type setting. And as recently as 2016, I've heard some of the statistics about 10% of U.S. hunters are female. That's grown. I've seen numbers range from that 20 to 25% of the hunter ranks today are female. In the shooting side, if you just looked at the shooting sports, it's much higher. It's estimated about 32% female right now. So I'm not really sure. Do you have any thoughts on why female hunter ranks have been on the rise over the past decade, let's say?
I feel like social media has definitely helped push the experience that hunting in general is a closed world, in the sense, without social media or growing up in it, you wouldn't really know that it's out there. Because when you go, you're in a really remote place. It's not flashy. It's not up in your face.
Mm-hmm.
So social media is good and bad, but it definitely has pushed that experience where people realize it's an option that may not have grown up doing it. And I think it's a great way to show people the right way to do things, the etiquette of hunting, the history of it. There's lots of opportunities there.
There are many ways. You're right. Social media, outdoor television, it's put a real spotlight, unnecessary spotlight, on gender diversification of hunting. Like I said before, I have a daughter, 13 years old. She loves hunting. She's my hunting buddy. And I have a 16-year-old son. He loves to hunt too, but sports are something that probably dominates his life a little bit more than the outdoors right now. So I'm particularly interested in, what we can do right and what we can do better. So I think just playing to your strengths here, Kate, female hunter clothing.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about, if you just go into Walmart, and you just buy clothing off the rack. Tell me from a female perspective, what is it about gender-specific clothing?
I feel like a lot has to do with the fit. In the last 5 years, especially, and I'll speak from a waterfowl perspective. I mean, 5 years ago, there weren't even female hunting waders, if you think about that, which is crazy that it took that long to get hunting waders for women that fit them. I mean, you have a certain fit for a woman that you need to make it work for them. Unfortunately, when you go into some of the stores, I'm not going to name the stores, but originally everything was Bottomland lined with pink or, Realtree lined with purple. And it didn't make very much sense. You don't have to market camo and hunting gear, hunting clothing. You don't have to market it like that. You can just have it so it's good quality, it fits well, and it works well. That's all we want. We want to be comfortable. We're really not that complicated. Just give us snacks, make sure we're comfortable, and access to the knowledge and opportunity to hunt, and that's what we're here for. So.
No, that's great. Julia, do you feel like if you want to go out, I need a pair of pants, I need a coat. Do you feel like you can go out to a store in today's world and find that apparel?
To go out or to buy online?
That's the question. Yeah. Do you feel like you can go out to a store?
That is hard as far as the fit.
Yes, short answer. Longer answer, is it a little bit more difficult to find stores that carry it? And if they do carry it in all sizes? That's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
I do find myself ordering online much more often. And a lot of times, the stores that have kind of come out of the woodworks as well, carrying those women hunting items that are good quality and that I would want to invest in, are only online anyway.
Okay.
So there's not necessarily those brands being represented in the stores, although there are stores that carry women's.
That's true. A lot of the girls, they come and they're like, I would love to try these on, but our typical hunting stores in the area don't have them to try on. Mm-hmm. So I'm not exactly sure about the fit. Obviously, there's measurements online for things, but that's a little more difficult. Personally, I'm 5'10", so I have worn men's sizes anyway. But I do know that people struggle with sizing and not being able to try them on in-store.
Me, I am people, because I am not 5'10".
Yeah, no, that's hard. I mean, I guess I find that way too. I tend to be brand loyal because fit varies from brand to brand to brand, and the particular brand that I like to wear, they only retail online. Mm-hmm. So when you take that 2-3 days before that, before your shipment arrives, doesn't fit, you send it back, you do it again and again and again. So there are advantages to being brand loyal. So at Delta, we have a large hunter recruitment. We call it Hunter 3 is kind of the umbrella term, but inside that we have a first hunt program where our volunteer chapters deliver local hunter recruitment programming. And then we also have a program called the University Hunting Program. And that one's pretty exciting, but I would love to get some advice from both of you. To be able to, and to do this, I think you're going to have to speak above yourself and try to, if you could give me a perspective that represents all women, if that's possible. I know that's impossible, but one of the things that we talk about is, I think out in the world, if I understand it correctly, most women tend to hunt in hunting groups that have men in it as well. But then I hear at times that let's have a women-only experience. Can you speak to the differences between those, or the role that each one of them plays?
Truthfully, the all women's hunts in Arkansas will be my first experience hunting with women, so I can't necessarily speak to that. But I will say that I spend more time hunting alone by myself, me and my dog, than I do with groups of people. And the people that I do hunt with are my guy friends or my dad and my grandpa, or not my grandpa, but my brother. And all of them very much know what line is there and what would be crossing it. And so I don't know that I can speak to that as well as maybe you could in your all-girls hunt experiences. But
so you're saying as far as getting more girls to go to the hunts, or as far as what's the difference? Can you?
Well, I think, yes. I mean, we obviously want to create programs that are attractive to anyone to attend. And if So what is the role of a women-only hunt? Are there females out there that are interested in hunting that would not find a mixed gender hunt comfortable?
I feel like it appeals to women for a bunch of different reasons. Okay, you have married women who can't leave to go on a group hunt with a bunch of men because they're married and it's just not going to work for that relationship. You hear that. You have women that have never really had the experience of going duck hunting or going hunting. So they appreciate and maybe feel more comfortable being in a group of all women that share that perspective of, hey, this is how I do things. This is what works for me. It might, it might work for them differently, but these are some tips and tricks. Women might feel more comfortable to ask questions and not look stupid. So I think that definitely opens the door for women to feel like they can experience more, learn more in a all-female hunt. I do think that the reason more women don't go on it is because they just don't feel comfortable. They don't have enough knowledge to feel comfortable. Like, for example, like when I first started hunting, I actually booked a couple hunts out of state by myself. I was like, I'm going to do it this year. Never done it before. I know like 3 girl duck hunters. I'm just going to go. So I show up in a pair of green jean tack pants from shooting range at work, and everyone thought I was undercover DNR, and no one realized I was just there to hunt by myself. And I told people about that. I told my girlfriends about, going to do that, and it was very intimidating. The idea is very intimidating because there's so many things that really take, a couple years of doing that to feel comfortable in like booking a hunt out of state, checking an outfitter's ratings, or like reviews, figuring out the location you go to. What kind of gear do I need to bring? All of the, how much do you leave for a tip? What are my normal expectations for a hunt? Like all of these different things that no one really talks about. I mean, there's YouTube videos, you can dig deep down into it, but everyone's like, okay, you go there, you shoot ducks, you go home. But there's so much more behind it in the prep and planning of trips that that people I feel intimidated because of a lack of knowledge. But once they do it, like flying with your shotgun is so easy. And I did a post about it because I was one of those people that was intimidated about it. You're like, bring a gun into the airport? Oh my God. And I'd flown with my handgun before, but never a shotgun. So I was all nervous. But once you do it, it's one of those things. Once you do it, it's so easy. The airport's used to it. There's like 5 things you have to remember, and it's easy. It's just taking that jump to have that experience so you feel comfortable for the future, and then you can share that with other women or other hunters of how you went about doing it. And it just creates more opportunity for people to go experience these things.
One of the earliest hunts, as I understand it, that you went on, Kate, was a guided hunt. It's kind of probably what you're talking about. If I understand it right, you were the only female in one of those hunts that you were on?
When I went out of state?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so those first couple years I was duck hunting, wood duck hunting in South Carolina, and then I decided to book those hunts out of state. I first went to Louisiana, showed up there, and then I went to Arkansas. Both those trips were probably the best thing I ever did because it got me outside of my comfort zone. And we already talked about my career history, so I'm not necessarily uncomfortable with traveling and new experiences, but it's something outside of the box that you don't necessarily realize you're going to do until you do it. And I learned so much in that time frame. And actually, when I went to Arkansas, I got the opportunity to stay on for the rest of the season and actually like be an assistant guide. And then I did that for the next 6 years.
Wow.
And so when you duck hunt, 30 to 50, I would save up all my leave time all year at work at the sheriff's office to do this. Thank God thank God they let me. So I would take off a month at a time, at least 30 to 40 days on average every year. And I'd go to Arkansas and I'd work at this outfitter. And the things you learn doing it every day, even if you've hunted for years and like, you go every other weekend or something like that, the amount of knowledge you get from doing it every day in and out, like it's incredible. And I'm so glad that I did that because it's probably one of the best things I ever did as far as knowledge of waterfowl hunting. So
No, that's great.
I liked sharing that with them.
Yeah, I have to acknowledge there's this skunk in the corner of the room. I'm going to put it on the table. I get a little uncomfortable talking about gender and ethnic diversity when we're talking about hunting. One of the things that I tell my daughter, well, I kind of back up a little bit. I remember I was in high school, and I scored a touchdown. And I over-celebrated. It was my first one ever. And my coach afterwards, he said, Joel, when you score a touchdown, act like you've done it before, right? Like it's not that big of a deal. So when I tell my daughter, I said, you're capable of doing anything that your brother is, anything. But I understand that there's this tendency, if you go hunting, that, oh, it's a girl, she's hunting, that's special. And I said, you know what? I crave a world where that's not special. I crave a world where that's normal.
Agreed.
Right? And you just look, and it's not about, oh, there's a girl over there. It's just another hunter. And I said, that's the world that I want to live in. And that's the world I think we're trying to create. But yeah, here we are forced to talk about, women in hunting, because if you're looking at, if it was normal, there'd be 50% female, 50% male in the ranks or something like that. But I do think it plays a really important role. There's a statistic on a paper that I've read where they show the percentage of kids. So if you have a household, mom and dad, kids, if dad hunts, the kids are, I think it was 30% likely to be a hunter, but if mom hunts, it jumps to, I think it was like 60% of the kids will hunt.
Right.
If it's a family activity.
affair. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's supported. So I do think it's important, that unfortunately or fortunately, it's important that we talk about this. We do shine a spotlight on it. So I'm curious, what is the hunting community doing well in terms of welcoming, attracting, respecting women in the hunting community? Anything jump to mind?
Here today.
Yeah.
This podcast right here. The fact that there's women on the cover of the Delta Waterfowl magazine. I mean,
which I think present company.
And it's not, and some people might be like, oh, it's special treatment or something. It's not that. It's just everything coming full circle that there are female waterfowlers. And it's funny. If you look at social media, some brands paint a picture that it's only men out there, that it's only men hunting. And I spent a day actually going through the top waterfowl brands. And I'd say less than 10. It was more like the average was 5% of the posts were female. And I was like, that's a weird perception. People may not realize that. Yes, there's obviously, that's probably the ratio of how many female there are to men. But if you have a little girl looking at this Instagram feed of, this big hunting brand, they're going to be like, wow, am I the only girl that hunts? Are there actually other female waterfowlers? Like, I hunted for years, and I only knew like 5 girls that hunted. But in reality, they're everywhere. I know I got a little sidetracked there, but I feel like just showing, whether it be, this media, social media, just showing that there are other females out there, great examples that, love the sport, that is the great thing right there.
Yeah.
I have recently, to go off of what you're saying about social media and showing, and even Delta Waterfowl and the podcast, I have seen an increase of outfitters, guides, bringing their clients and posting those pictures of the females, whether it be from an all-girls hunt or maybe there was a girlfriend that tagged along. I snow goose hunted with an outfitter, and it was me and another girl, and she was part of a client group, and I was not a client. I was just helping out, and they were posting pictures of that group photo with us girls in it, but there are still outfitters that may not have, I know outfitters that don't have any female clients at all, and so it's hard for them to maybe post content, but they're sharing other content. And so if there's a Delta Waterfowl post that has a female in it, they'll share that. And so they're figuring out ways to, okay, maybe we've not solved the problem completely on our end, but we're still promoting those who are solving that issue and closing that gap. And so I think those are some things that are being done well and are just only on the rise. It's not decreasing at all. So
one of the things that I talk a lot about, or we talk a lot about at work, is you go to an R3 conference, you look at the license statistics for a particular license buying statistics for a particular year, and it is awesome. Female participation is on the rise, but also females have the highest dropout rate of hunters. Do you have any thoughts on why that is the case? I do.
I feel like there's two aspects to it. I feel like we need more positive female role models that set a great example of, blind etiquette, group hunting etiquette, the way you're supposed to do things in a positive way. Because do I think that, someone acting a fool in a blind is going to negatively affect me as a female if that person gave off a bad impression? No. I think my own actions will represent my own people's view of me when they meet me.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are worried about that aspect. But also, I feel like a lot of people might not stick with it as far as female in the hunting industry is because they see a lot of closed doors. And so they get discouraged. Like if it's a woman being like, hey, I'm the only girl traveling. I would love to come hunt there. Well, we only can fit you in with another group, and it might be all men, and they might not feel comfortable about you going. Or hunting trips. Like, okay, all your guy friends that hunt, they're going on a hunt, but you can't go on that hunt with them because you're the only girl, and their wives would not appreciate that. So opportunity is something that you have to just stick with it. You have to figure ways to go around it, whether it be girl group hunts, learning to hunt by yourself, going to an outfitter that supports having females in the blind with them, because it's just another hunter when it comes down to it. I mean, if you have the experience, the respect, the knowledge to be able to hunt, it's just another hunter in the blind. And people, it's kind of like when I was female in the military. I tried out for a special infantry team, so we were the first females to go with infantry. And everyone's like, oh my God, I've never seen a girl before with a gun. That's how they acted. But it's like, have you never been around a woman before? It's the same thing.
Right.
It's just people overthink it when it's just simplified. It's another hunter in the blind. So that's definitely one of the reasons why I think women, if that is a statistic, that they might fall short or get discouraged, is because they keep seeing the door slammed in their face when they're just trying to go hunting. So.
Well, you know what? My own mother, when my mom and dad were dating, when they were early married, before they started having kids, my mom didn't grow up a hunter. She didn't grow up a shooter. But I think part of that, the romance, right, is we're going to do things together that maybe we're not comfortable with, and that probably qualified for my mom. She shot trap, she went grouse hunting, she did those types of things, and then along came family. So I think for her, it just wasn't time, and it was maybe more of a traditional time period, decades ago. Geez, did I say decades ago? Yeah, I guess I'll be 50 next year. But so I guess that is decades ago already. But so I think that one makes sense, but I never really thought about you brought up a good point there, relationship conflict. So I think early in a relationship, let's just say that, like in your case, a boyfriend at the time took you.
Right.
But over time, things change, right? And so now if you're the only female in a group of men and you're staying somewhere, I could see how that could cause relationship conflict. And so one of the things that I would really like Delta to create, one of the things that we have plans for is to call it a focus group type retreat, where we do bring, it's all females, and the whole point is to come up with a guide on how to stay hunting as a female. And so I think, we out in the world, a lot of the role models or spokespeople for hunting are pro staffers or just the exceptional hunter. Mm-hmm. But the normal everyday hunter is probably what most people relate to. So
right.
I think it is more about, being relatable and not being just this exceptional thing that a female hunts.
Right. That's actually why I don't have pro staff. I've had girls ask me if I'll do pro staff because I feel like everyone should be included. I know that's very corny, cliche, whatever, but that's actually why I chose not to do it for the brand, because I want to feel like any woman, any size, any experience can be part of this.
That is good. Boy, you really did open my mind. It actually it just kind of shattered this wall that in my mind of relationship conflict. Like that, I don't care if you're talking bowling, I don't care if you're talking going to the bar, anything. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And especially hunting, being more secretive, hiding out somewhere by design. I never really thought about that.
Any woman in any male-dominated career, that's basically all I experienced, that is always going to be something that you just have to work around.
Yeah.
It's just it is what it is.
And
Yeah.
I think there's something talking about retention in female hunting. I think there's something to be said for staying power. And when you want something really bad, you tend to do whatever you need to do to make it happen,
Right.
and to stay and fight and to be able to experience what you want to experience. I think, to caveat with off of what you said, the relationship factor is a huge thing, especially if you've got a lodge involved, because you're usually sharing a room. Not always, but especially when there's male and female, you're sharing a room. If you have a significant other of any sorts, there's a little bit of a questionable intent. Now, I always make the joke that when you're out in the blind, first of all, it's freezing cold, like nothing bad, in my experience. But I know there are people that have other experiences, and so that's been a real thing. I've experienced it. I know other people, you've probably experienced it, and so a lot of women just don't want to deal with it. Also, just the ability to know where to go for experience. I think another reason women specifically, may not continue hunting and may give it up is because they may not have the access or the funding to be able to get the access.
Right.
So not every woman wants to carry 24 decoys and, a sled and her gear and everything into public land to be able to hunt. Or maybe, safety is a big thing. So I'm always cautious when I'm walking into public land by myself, carrying all of this gear. Just knowing my surroundings, paying attention in the dark, making sure that I'm doing what I can because I am alone, not even because there's other people, from a distance around me, but just myself, to keep myself safe. That is not only intimidating, but it's also hard to learn all at once, especially if you don't have any
Situational awareness.
Yes, situational awareness is huge. But also, if girls aren't wanting to do that to have the access, so public land hunting, not everybody has, 150 acres of flooded timber, or Missouri marsh, or South Carolina coast. Not everybody has access to that. And so it almost leads, in my experience, it almost leads to looking for outside contacts or opportunities to be able to get that access, which is, I feel like, where the guides and the outfitters for female hunting comes in.
Yeah, they play a great role in filling that gap.
But for me personally, I would not be able to afford or justify getting all of my waterfowl experience through an outfitter every season. And so I just kind of had to look for other opportunities to be able to fill that gap. But I would say, from conversations, that's a huge reason women don't hunt anymore, or they slow down, or they go once a year, or...
Yeah, I attended a mentor certification workshop a number of years ago. And when you were certified, it basically, I felt like I knew how to mentor hunters because I had mentored others, my own children. But there was a gentleman in that class, and he was from East Asian ethnicity. And he shared something with that group, and he said that he was not comfortable hunting on public land because of his ethnicity. He didn't feel safe. He felt worried out on public land. The other hunters, he was afraid to be persecuted, afraid to be, slandered, let's say. Do you, as females, do you feel comfortable hunting on public land?
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah, because, basically you're all bundled up in camo with a gun anyway. No one's really going to know the difference.
I like that.
I think it's all about, it touches a little bit on a couple topics we just talked about, but I think it's all about how you carry yourself. How you walk into the blind. Do you show up late? Do you offer to help set up decoys? Do you assume everything's going to be done for you? Like, don't go in doing that. Put in the work. Be there. Be present. Be there to hunt.
Learn.
Sometimes we get wrapped up in things that are not important. Whether it be for clout or whatever. But I think how you carry yourself, the efforts you put in, it really goes into your experience, especially when you're going on a guided hunt.
Yeah, I think that's huge, right? But I think those are words to live by anywhere you go, anything you do. You
Right.
go to somebody's house as a guest. Can I clear the table? Can I help? Can I help
Right.
make supper? Don't just sit there and
But
just wait to
sometimes
be.
when people are paying for an experience, and this is just me working out in Arkansas, you see it. When sometimes people get it confused. When you're paying for experience, they expect everything to be perfect. They expect the ducks to be released from the cage exactly at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Full limits for everybody. Decoys already set up. And a lot of that stuff does come already done for you. But I feel like people need to humble themselves a little bit and realize that, you aren't going to learn to be a better hunter unless you actually pitch in. A guide is probably the best teacher that you can have because they hunt every single day. Guide is the best person you can learn from. Ask those questions. And if you have a guide that doesn't want to answer questions, go to a different outfitter. Because there are plenty of guides that would love to humor your questions. And because they love that you are willing to learn, that you want to learn. And I feel like a lot of people don't take that opportunity. But they are probably one of the best resources for becoming an experienced waterfowl hunter.
Well, and they have a lot of perspective and history too.
Right.
Good male clients, bad male clients, and I suppose it goes the same thing no matter what your gender is. So.
Right. And this has nothing to do with the topics, but if you go on a guided hunt, male or female, the birds change every single day. They could be amazing on Monday, be dead on Tuesday, amazing on Wednesday, and dead on Thursday. It has nothing to do with your outfitter or your guide. If they are putting in the work and doing the effort, tip them regardless. They put in so much work behind the scenes that people don't even realize. So don't because I paid a certain amount of money, I expect a full limit. They're wild animals. And that's just something I feel like we need to say out loud a little bit more.
Yeah, expectation management, right?
Right.
For sure.
It might help with retention.
True. I think setting expectations early in a hunt like that is necessary, and some things should be common sense. But sometimes you still got to clarify and set those expectations. But you had asked about kind of maybe a fear of public hunting or going public hunting on public land, I guess. But I'm also not afraid to hunt on public land. I think. My dad is a little bit more fearful for me to hunt on public land. And so there is that fear of not knowing what's going on. But like you said, we're bundled up. Half the time you can't tell who is who anyway until you're walking out. And it's always the best reactions when I'm like walking out with my birds and my dog. And
There was a girl with blonde hair 10 feet away from me this whole time.
And I like take my hat or my hood off and they're like, what? It's always so funny.
Yeah, I feel like I'm less worried. I'm not worried about people.
No.
When public hunting, I'm more worried, like the boat's going to break down in the middle of nowhere and
Right.
you're stranded. I'm not worried about other hunters,
Yeah.
I'm a good shot.
Well, you have a unique background that I would imagine makes you feel a little safer than the typical person.
That's
out there.
fair.
Yeah.
But I feel like the more natural disasters of like, you tripped and hurt your ankle in the middle of nowhere, or you have no service, or, something breaks down, or you get injured, or God forbid, you have, your gun goes off, or.
Well, and this has nothing to do with any topic that we've just talked about, but I guess it does. But talking about comfortability and being comfortable with your firearms, with your background, that's not an issue for you at all. But I think a lot of girls, and really, honestly, people, kind of have this idea, we're going to go out and we're going to hunt, we're going to kill some birds, and that's it. And going back to the experience and background and the knowledge and understanding that you have to have going into a hunt is so in situations that could happen like that,
Right.
you're not in a tizzy because you don't know what to do. You've forgotten your stuff behind you. You're trying to do whatever, figure out who's beside you, and make sure that you're safe. And all this time, you're not comfortable with any of the things that are in your hand, how to use them. So not only are you fearing, in situations, but you're also not comfortable to handle them.
Right.
Whatever could happen or pop up.
I think just being aware of what could happen and having that discussion with someone who's experienced of what could go wrong
Yes.
should bring comfort to someone altogether within itself. Like just having a law enforcement experience, you are ready, of the what ifs. You think of the what ifs and then you prepare for the what ifs. Whereas a lot of new hunters, especially, or even seasoned ones that get complacent, you know, you don't think about, okay, what happens when this boat breaks down?
Yeah.
Who am I going to come get me? Where is the nearest hospital? It's probably an hour away. I probably don't have service. Can I even get somebody? You know, like, do I have a first aid kit? How many blinds have you been in with a first aid kit? You know?
Not that many.
Not that many. I mean, have you ever dealt with a GSW? Like, have you ever dealt with someone getting shot by a shotgun? Do you have anything to bandage it up in the moment? Probably not. I mean, people are going to panic if they've never thought about what can go wrong. And that's not, you know, that shouldn't make you more worried about, oh God, this could happen. No, that prepares you. All right, what would I do if this happened? And I feel like if people have that discussion ahead of time, when it happens in the moment, you're actually training yourself to be like, okay, we already talked about this. This is what we're going to do. This is where this is. I can go grab this. This is how I would handle this situation.
Right.
So
No, that's good. Very good advice. I think we could talk about this for much longer than the 47 minutes we've been on the air, but I think we'll wrap it up. And I'll just call this part one. I really enjoyed the conversation. I do think that you both are excellent mentors for all hunters, not just female. So I would love to continue the conversation another time.
absolutely.
If you're interested.
Great.
Absolutely.
And there's so much to unbox here and to talk about in different layers. And maybe next time we'll pick something a little bit more specific.
Okay.
And we'll dive a little deeper. So
Yeah.
I like it.
I hope you both enjoy your time here at the expo. It's I live in North Dakota. Surprisingly, it's in the upper 90 degrees there right now. And
If it's under 100, it's a good day in Texas right now, okay?
yeah, I always say, people say, I couldn't live in the north all that cold. And I say, you know what? You can put lots of clothes on, but you can only take so many clothes off. So
That's true.
give me the north. I'll take it. So, well, thank you very much, and we'll
Thank you
sign
so
off.
much for having us.
Thank you.
bet.
Yes,
Take care.
Absolutely.